Hello and welcome to the March 10th, 2025 Season 2 Balance Patch tier list. Now, as per usual, we're going to go from bottom to top, worst characters to best characters. Let's get right into it. Now, starting off as our still bottom one character, Vampire. Vampire got a lot of buffs recently, but no amount of buffs was able to save it from having absolutely abysmal matchup spread. I mean, this guy wins 2 matchups, and one of them doesn't even matter. This character just does not have anything right now. I mean, pretty decent combo game. It did get access to a Dizzy Stun with this new S1 buff, which is really good. But overall, I mean, this character isn't good. It's really telegraphed, it's really predictable. You know what it wants to click every single time. It has pretty much no mix-up options, except for just movement. It also lacks shield damage for the most part. That's mainly the reasons why it is currently the worst character in the game. Now for our other D tier character, we have Atomic. Atomic is a character that's really interesting because his strength, which is being able to kill anyone that doesn't have brace, is a really good strength, but it also works against him because that's his only strength. If he doesn't have any way to combo you, he's pretty much just useless. He doesn't really get a lot of stuff done. His shield damage is very lackluster. Not to mention he has 2 really borderline unplayable matchups right now, which is Kaiju and Marauder. A lot of characters just do really well into him as well, which don't help his case. He's kind of a one-trick pony where if he gets a combo, he's a really good character, but if he doesn't, then he's just really bad. So there's not really a lot to say here. He's just not very good in this meta right now, and he's going to stay in the D tier. Now for our C tier, we have Knight. As you guys probably remembered from last month's meta, Knight was a very good character. They were easily an S tier, undisputed, but Knight got hit easily the hardest out of every character in terms of nerfs. His passive was basically cut in half. His healing was nerfed. His S4 now no longer has 50% damage reduction. His damage wasn't nerfed at all. It was just mainly his defense that made him so good. But he only wins a couple matchups. He has a lot of hard losing matchups, which isn't good at all for him right now. A lot of just the better characters really just crush him, and it's just really unfortunate where he's placed right now. And for our other C tier character, we have Kaiju. Now, Kaiju's interesting because he only got nerfs last patch. Nonetheless, a lot of his super terrible matchups are a lot more manageable. He still has a couple really good counters. He counters Knight really well now in overtime. He counters Atomic consistently, as I mentioned, and that's kind of it. He's just not a great character. He's still carried by his skill 3, and all of his other moves are just either really bad or his skill 1's just it's good but not great. It's really just he just has a good enough matchup spread to be up here. That's really the only reason why he's a C tier character right now. And to start off our B tier, we have Dark Mage. Now, a lot of people are probably going to be surprised by this because in my first tier list, I rated this character as terrible and I said nothing good about it. Dark Mage has actually good stuff now. Its mana was buffed in terms of its regeneration. Its healing was doubled. Its skill 2 cost less of mana to actually use. Fireball did get nerfed, but it didn't affect it too majorly. It still has a pretty good matchup spread in overtime, which is really the only place you're ever going to find it. Other than that, it's just pretty good character overall. It does get hard countered by a couple of the meta characters, so that's the main reason why it's really held back. It is slow. If it ever fights someone that can either completely destroy its shield or just completely cut off its movement, then Mage is going to struggle a lot. Mage also has another issue of he's really only usable as a last pick because whenever he gets a kill, he's usually going to have a lot less mana and not enough to really get another kill for at least a while. So being a sitting duck is definitely not the best thing. And for our other B tier character, we have Assassin. Assassin did get nerfed pretty hard. It actually rose from my old tier list video. It went from bottom 3 to top 2. A lot of developments were made, and so a lot of nerfs came his way, but it was mainly a full rebalance. Assassin still isn't remotely a bad character. It has a lot of positive matchups and only a couple really bad ones. In overtime, it does get a lot worse, but he's mainly slotted as a first pick anyways. so it's not really the biggest deal for it. He's a great opener. His main thing that he does right now is that he beats Viking very, very well. If an opponent's going to use Viking first pick, Assassin is amazing against it. That's his primary niche right now, but other than that, he just has solid matchups against all the lower characters. And then he beats Viking, so definitely pretty solid character, not broken, not bad. The nerfs pretty much worked, so that's great to see. And for our A tier, we have Fighter. Fighter did get nerfed pretty hard. Its Fireball is significantly worse, which was arguably the best move in the entire game at that point. It still does everything that is known to do. Great zoning, frame 2 option out of shield, which is incredible. He's able to constantly toss people into overtime border, which is really good because he is generally a last pick character. His combos are still as deadly as ever. They've not been nerfed at all. Fighter Black also did get major buffs, on the contrary to Fighter White getting pretty major nerfs, so that's definitely something nice to see. The only thing holding Fighter back is just his matchup spread just isn't as good as the characters above him, which is really interesting to see due to the fact that he only loses about like 1, maybe 2 arguably. And thus just has a couple even matchups, so still a really strong character. If you need a last pick, highly suggest playing Fighter right now. He is very hard, so if you're new to the game, I wouldn't suggest playing him, but if you're like experienced and you know how to play the game, highly recommend playing him. And for our other A tier character, Marauder. Literally only dropped from S tier to high A tier. They did get pretty decently nerfed, I would say. The nerfs made him definitely not super broken, but he's still super strong nonetheless. He basically has a second brace with his skill 4. It cancels hit stun. With it, he shuts down Atomic, Vampire, Kaiju, Knight, Assassin especially. Just all the lower characters, he completely crushes with it. Just skill 4 alone. His moves are also just generally really, really strong. I mean, he has a nuclear bomb with his skill 2. He has an instant out of shield option, or just really high shield damage option with skill 3. His skill 1 is a great projectile. It's very large and also does good shield damage. So if you're trying to like chase someone, it's a really good chase tool. It's also a very low cooldown, which helps him a lot. So it can be used both in combos consistently and as a zoning tool. So definitely still a very strong character. It only loses to the S tiers. That's really literally the only thing holding it back, is that it just has 2 really bad matchups against the better characters. Other than that, pretty much just beats everyone else really hard and goes even with Fighter. And to start off our low S tier, we have Berserker. Berserker actually got nerfed, but all of his matchups that completely walled him out were characters that got just nerfed even harder, ironically. So he just got super lucky with this patch. The main thing that carried him last patch was his red form, and that's still true. His red form is what makes his matchups winning or losing, and he only loses 1. He beats literally everyone except Viking. His combos are still insane. He still has the pseudo infinite that's only held back by mana. The only counter to it is brace, and you have to brace properly against it to not just die. And even if you do brace, he has answers to catching brace if you mistime it anyway. Just a ridiculous character. He just has a ton of the best moves in the game overall, and his shield damage is just mainly ridiculous. It makes characters just not be able to play the game, because you literally just can't approach Berserker at all right now. So, still a very ridiculous character. Also another last pick character, and a lot easier than Fighter. So if you're like newer to the game, and you're like, oh, well I learned block stacking, I'll just learn Berserker. Great idea. Highly would suggest doing that. And for our best character in the game, we have Viking. Clocking in with all winning and 1 losing matchup is insane. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. Yeah, he has so many +2 matchups. It's unholy. Even a +3 against Dark Mage. I don't really know what to say. It's just like his mobility is ridiculous. Wall dashing is incredible right now. Base form Viking didn't really get nerfed at all. It was mainly Valhalla. And he's not really Valhalla reliant if you just play him properly either. You can end games 3-0 without Valhalla. Like, he's just that good. Like I said earlier, the only thing that isn't making him like banned from tournaments tier is Assassin having a really good matchup into him. But it's still pretty playable. It's not nowhere close to unwinnable. But Viking just pretty much has it all. He can catch stall. He can stall himself. He does a ton of damage. He destroys your shield with ease. In overtime, he can throw you into the border over and over as much as he wants without using any cooldowns whatsoever. and he literally just has 5 attacks, which is ridiculous. His main weakness is not being able to block dash, but that doesn't really matter a lot of the time. He doesn't really sit in shield, and doesn't need to sit in shield for very long anyways. And I guess the only noticeable flaw with him as well is that his block stacking isn't really great. It's kind of just a worse Berserker M1, and he can't block dash with it, so it's a little weird to use. But that's literally his only 2 issues. He excels at pretty much literally everything else in the game. Very strong character. And that is the end of the tier list for the Season 2 balance patch. Did you agree? Disagree? Is my tier list terrible and you want to really tell me about it? Comment below. This tier list is primarily meant to be a list for top level players, or at like higher echelon players. This is not a low elo tier list, because a lot of low elos struggle against characters that are, you know, down here, especially Vampire, Atomic, and Kaiju. But those characters, as you can most definitely see, are not really great. And also, last thing I would like to mention before ending the video, I do stream on Twitch now, twitch.tv/AlphaTrilio. I would love if you guys came by. I stream pretty much every other day, late at night. I stream from around 10 p.m. EST to around 12 a.m. or sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I stream for a few hours pretty much every other day. So if you want to stop by, please feel free to. I would love to have you. And if you have any questions, go there. If you want to like ask for advice or anything, then I will be very happy to give it. And that is all I really have to say. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.